I'm going to start. I know.
Today.
Today. Okay. Welcome back, everybody, to the VHSPodcast, which is stood for Visuals Hypnotized Society. We are a podcast that covers a wide range of topics in the creative industry, from photography, filmmaking, podcasting, design, and anything else creative. We are not alone today. We are your co-hosts, Curtis and...
I'm Son.
And we have today...
Addy Saucedo.
Addy is a podcast planner or...
the podcast planner.
Yeah. So if you need somebody who will help you plan your podcast, so to speak, she is your woman to go to. And she also works for Simplecast. And what do you do exactly at Simplecast?
So my title is Education and Community Manager. And what that means is right now podcasting, as we all know, it's growing. But then before when podcasts first started, it was very much a technical, it was like the tech person's, hobby. But now that it's gained popularity, people just don't know what to do. There's a lot of information out there, but it's outdated, and it will stir you in the wrong way depending on where you're at. So it's my job to help our customers at Simplecast and the podcasting community, how to get them from A to Z in the quickest way and more effective way possible. And then community just means that I'm engaging with our customers within our Facebook group and, at events, live events. So anything to engage with our customers, support them. Simplecast heavily invests in their customers' success because it's our mission to not just help our customers, but if they do better, then the industry does better. So it's like a ripple effect that if we can support them on their journey from A, then not only does it support them on their personal journey, but it's the whole, they tell their friends, and then it's a ripple effect of everybody seeing whoa, that podcaster's successful. I need to go see what's going on in the podcasting world. Maybe that's where I can take my creative, outlet to. And that has happened. Podcasting has grown because other successful podcasters. So that's my title, Education and Community Manager over at Simplecast.
Awesome.
Sweet. Yeah. And what was, how'd you get to Simplecast? Was it always there? Have you been there, how long have you been there for?
So Simplecast has been around for 6 years. So they've been around for a great time. I've been podcasting and in the podcasting space for 7 years. I did not start there. I just got hired about a year ago. I've completed my first year there.
Congrats.
Thank you. But it's been a journey because it's been the whole trial and error. I wanted to first get into radio. And then when I got into, audio engineering and going through that, I quickly realized, well, I have a lot to learn. Internships are hard. It was still a very heavy man's world. Even in class, it was just me and some other girl just learning the ropes. And I quickly learned, wait, I'm listening to this thing on my iPhone. I know it's a manual process, but they're just ripping the audio from the radio station, putting it on this, iTunes thing, and I would have to do the whole, download it to my phone and listen to it. Why can't I just get my footing in that first and then go knock on radio doors and see where I can go? But the rest is history. I found that not only were the barriers to entry much lower, but the opportunities were greater, both from, career standpoint, knowledge standpoint. I just saw that there was a clean slate. It's a new industry. Let me continue to focus on that path. And from there, just doing my own thing, people found out that, Addy knows how to edit. She knows how to upload these things and turn them into podcasts. Can you teach me? Can you edit my stuff? Can you, XYZ? And then that turned into managing. I worked for 2 companies that had podcast management production companies. But then I felt like I reached a certain point where I needed to do something for myself, which was the creation of the podcast planner. A lot of these clients were kept asking, how do we keep our show going? What makes a podcast successful? How do I know that I'm doing this thing right? I have no clue what I'm doing. So I would, little by little put things together for them. And some clients just said, you got to put this in a book. I'm like, a book? You're crazy. Just print it, quiet, just, go with it. But they kept telling me, and they said, you should look into it. So on the side, I would look into it and put it together. And next thing you know, 2017 it launched. I put it up on Amazon and customers actually bought it. Oh, sorry.
It's okay. We do it all the time.
But yeah, customers actually bought it when it was available. And I was like, whoa, okay, people do want this. And after doing that for a good while, I just found, again, like even though that was still serving its purpose, it has been growing at its own steady pace. It hasn't been, just kind of like podcasting, it hasn't been a hockey stick growth where it's like suddenly overnight it's a
like
success.
A YouTube thing. Or,
Right. And so I looked at opportunities like, what can I do that's bigger than what I'm doing, and still I'm in the podcasting space. I'm still serving these creators. I'm still serving this industry and the companies willing to invest in the industry. And that's when I found Simplecast. Simplecast was at that point in their journey where they wanted to grow their company. They needed more support. They needed more help. And I got on the phone with Dane, who's the director of partnerships, and the CEO, Brad Smith of Simplecast. And I loved their vision. I loved not only what they were doing with their product, but where were they going and what ideas did they have. So it was kind of a very, let's get this going. I'm count me in. And they said yes. And next thing you know, I'm working at the company for over a year, and I love it. I can't imagine where I'm at. Like, I actually wake up every day happy to go to work.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's how you know. Yeah, that's how you know you found your passion, and like, yeah, you just want to go to work and get it done and be happy with it. Like,
right.
You leave happy, you go happy. So totally get that. So I never even heard of Simplecast before I met you. So and there's a bunch of podcasting hosting sites. So what differentiates, like, because we use Anchor.
Right.
So what differentiates Simplecast from the rest of everybody else of the podcasting host sites?
That's a really good question, because like you said, there's many companies out there. Podcasting is getting big.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you this, the hosting part is very easy. It's the tech of that part that's super easy, which is why you're going to see a lot of companies out there starting to get into the game. But what's not easy, and what differentiates us from those other hosting companies, is that we make it easy. We've heavily designed our interface to make it, where do you upload this audio? What do I do? How do I upload this to Apple, Spotify, all these other platforms? In addition to that, the number one thing is, we're talking today, but how do you know that somebody's actually going to listen to it? So we give you analytics, and we give you industry leading analytics. So back in this April, we just released a new metric that's called the unique listener. And, YouTube, all social platforms, they give you the follow metric. They give you the subscriber metric. You don't get that on podcasting. They'll give you some type of estimate, of like, you might have 2 subscribers, but nobody really knows in the podcasting space, because, Apple, they hold their proprietary tech behind, and they heavily promote now, we're all about security. We're not going to let companies know how far you're getting into episodes. They give you some metrics, but every platform that you listen to a podcast on, they collect information differently, they track differently, so that way that's the reason why nobody can say this is how many subscribers you have. On Simplecast, we actually do. We're the only company that can tell you, yes, you have 10, just an example, yes, you have 10 downloads, but of those 10, you actually have 8 strong listeners, and of those 8, 2 people listen to an episode twice. Wow. So we give you those stronger metrics. We give you who's listened, on what device, what's the service that they're using to listen to you, where are they at, what browsers are they using. In addition to that, we're releasing some new metrics when it comes to web players. Nobody has that. So we're very heavy on the analytics, and the reason is because the more you know about your audience, the better that you can do with that content and where you can stir them. If you know that you have a huge audience in Seattle, you're probably going to start dropping a little hit bombs that their culture, or that if you're going to do a live show or want to do a meetup, you're going to go to Seattle and make sure that you cater to them. In addition to analytics, if you're not that geeky into numbers, we also are heavily invested in our customers. So we provide not only a nice design, we give you a website. Every plan comes with a website.
Yeah.
We also give you sharing tools like the web players and this thing called Recast. It's an audio-visual, tool. You've probably seen it scrolling through Instagram, and somebody has like these audio waves going.
So that comes with the.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's
cool.
included.
That's awesome.
That's sick.
Yeah, instead of like having to go to another platform
Or make it yourself, kind of thing.
right,
It's
or
right there for you.
opening Adobe and having to create it from scratch. It's all within the platform. You can go from anywhere from 0 to 90 seconds. So we've optimized it for social.
Okay.
So they can upload it there, and analytics, support, modern design. A lot of these companies, Anchor has done a great job when it comes to making things look good. Mm-hmm. But a lot of the other companies, they're like 15 years behind.
I know, like, not gonna shame anybody, but like Libsyn and like what's the Podbean? Just the designs make me want to just go away from it.
Right.
You kind of need to be updating. Like, I think that's one thing they should listen to the creators. So that's why when I saw Simplecast, I was like, wow, I really like the design, and it makes me want to use your guys' platform. Same with Anchor. That's the reason why I use it too, because of the design and like for what they offer too. But I didn't even know any of this from Simplecast, but that's really awesome. You guys are kind of killing it. Like,
thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sold.
I know.
It's about not only making it easy, like when you go into our interface to upload your new episodes, we want you to feel like the same feeling that you get when you get that new car. You're like, whoa, not only does it look cool, but it feels cool to use it.
Yeah.
And I'm proud to use it. And it gives me the information that I need at the right time. And in addition to all of those features, we pride ourselves in the security. We go through heavy audits when it comes to bigger companies. We have Facebook on our platform. We have Instagram. We have Medium. We have bigger companies like Schwab, which is a finance company. You can go on our homepage if you want to see like all the list of customers.
Yeah, we saw.
Okay, but they make us go through these heavy audits. Like, how secure is your platform? How secure is our information that we're giving you in your hands? And do your employees respect that? Here's the bigger kicker. Aside from all of that, you guys are doing a lot of work putting into your podcast here. There are companies out there that if you read the fine print, you don't own your content. So at Simplecast, you own your content 100%, which is why, a lot of people will say, well, I can go do my podcast over there for free. Why do I have to pay $15? That's our starting plan. In addition to all of the things that I mentioned, we really want you to own your content 100%. We don't want to ever get in the middle of you creating and saying, like, you can't do that because we actually own that piece. Or the second you become popular, you realize, wait a minute, I'm only getting, 80%. Where's the other 20% going? It's going to Simplecast. So we really, when you pay for the plans that we have, you own your content and your creativity 100%. We're just giving you the platform to take it wherever you want to take it from there.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
I highly respect that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Like a creator.
Yeah, you're for so just like how Spotify is, they're for the creators. You guys are for the creators. So I love that. That's a great message.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I wanted to talk more about kind of transition into what makes a good podcast. And this is not just because I'm asking because I want tips on our podcast, but for other people who want to start their own, kind of get the tips, because I feel like you have the knowledge and the tips that you can provide. So I guess there's a lot of sub points to this, but in essence, why do you think podcasting has become so popular? Like, what makes it good? What makes good ones like really good, in your opinion?
In my opinion, it comes down to just like any other medium that really build strong fans. We have Game of Thrones, we have Breaking Bad. You have think of your favorite TV show. What's behind that favorite TV show are the characters and the stories and the conversations and like what makes you think or what makes you feel behind all of that. And aside from and also like Game of Thrones, they really pushed on the culture of things. So people started saying like, I'm House Targaryen, I'm House Stark, right? So same thing with podcasting. It's no different in that it's just audio. So it's a different way of telling stories, a different way of conversations. In addition to the stories and conversations, what has brought podcasting really far is education and giving people a different way to consume all of this information. You know, a lot of people are walking their dog, or they're doing dishes, or they're exercising, or they're driving. They're doing something while they're also consuming this piece of audio. And that audio, you can search anything that you're into. I really got into like collectible notebooks this past summer. And I know it's super geeky, but I was like, let me see if there's a podcast. Sure enough, there's like 3 podcasts on the whole culture of these notebooks and the pens to use for them.
Awesome.
You can find anything on this podcast, but what makes a good podcast, like that's very, it just depends on like, what do you want? And it's subjective to every person. But let me ask you this, like what successful podcasts come to mind? Like what is your favorite podcast?
I've listened to Gary Vee a lot recently. I know he's like kind of he's OG.
To podcasting?
Not podcasting, but like I guess in general. But I do love his stuff.
He's really OG in like the social media space.
Right.
Like, he's been preaching this since like 2007.
Right.
Yeah, like when Twitter started, he was like one of the first investors. So social media, yes, but like I think he turned the Ask Gary Vee like segment. I think he did turn it into like a podcast thing. So, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite podcasts right now. I listen to because I feel like it's something I actually learn from it, and it's like I feel like I'm not wasting my time. Sometimes I listen to podcasts and I feel like it's kind of goes on, but he's like constantly feeding me information, and he's like kind of interactive sometimes.
Yeah.
So I feel like that really brings me in.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's what I like about it.
Yeah.
But I don't know what about you.
So for me, I listen to the Joe Budden podcast. They talk more about like the music space. So I'm really into music, and a lot of hip hop. So, and he's a rapper. So it's just cool to hear his side of things. And like, he's got a couple industry people that work in the music labels and stuff like that. And then I also listen to Ryan Higgins' podcast, Off the Pill. He's funny. And then I also listen to Tiny Meat Game, which is from Cody Ko and Noel Miller. So they're both comedians. So I just like to listen to funny stuff and entertaining like content.
Well, see, that's exactly what makes a good podcast is that you guys are able to say, like, I like this because of this. And if you kind of, take the curtain back a little bit on both of those shows or, multiple of your shows, they all have like this North Star of they know the purpose of their show and they constantly deliver. Like Gary Vee is heavy on, like, I'm just documenting what I'm doing. Like I'm showing you, I'm exposing the realness of what happens versus trying to polish it and make it look nice. I mean, he has producers and editors to do that for him, but his North Star is, I'm going to show how I hustle. If you guys want to come along with it, go with it. But here are the basics. And it's always the basics that he teaches.
Yeah.
So all these shows have that North Star of, this is who I am, this is what we are, and we're constantly going to give you this form of content. So it's consistency in the messaging. It's consistency in the personalities. And that's what attracts people to these podcasts. Now, if you go to the other main podcast, the main podcast, I'll have to like hand gesture over here. Like Serial. Have you guys heard of Serial?
Yeah. Wait, like, I'm thinking of like actually cereal.
Dude,
wait.
Not the right thing.
No, I'm so sorry.
No, it's all good.
Maybe I'm hungry. I don't know. But what enlighten me?
So Serial is like, it's one of the biggest shows out there in podcasting, and it documented like it's a whodunit type of podcast, at least the first season. There's different seasons to it now, but the first season was about this murder that happened and surrounding, high school kids. Who did it? Was it her boyfriend? And, he's still in jail. And so that story became popular, I think, because it first launched off of another popular podcast platform. And they pushed heavy on, like, we have a story here. People need to know about it because it's not just the story and it's not about who did it, but it's also about our government, like how our government can do this to people. And then the surrounding families that suffer because of it. So Serial kind of, opened and set a new level of podcasting because the storytelling was good. The production was good. Even the music, the visuals, they also did pretty good, it comes down to branding too,
Yeah.
right? So good podcasting, just like any other medium, it comes down to, what's your North Star? Do you have that? Are you consistent with your messaging and your personalities? Are you consistent with your branding? Is it attractive to look at? Especially, audio depends on visuals. Even when we talk, it's important that in how we say things and how we word things, is it expressive enough? And it's not to say like you should kind of babysit how you're saying things. It's just talk as if you're talking to your best friend. Yeah. When you talk to your best friend, that's why I keep bumping into like this microphone, because I get animated with my hands. I get into the conversation and I start saying things just as I would tell my best friend. So yeah, what can qualify as a good podcast, I think those are the strong elements. Everybody has those strong elements. You can look at any podcast that's successful and you can ask yourself, do they have a North Star? Are they consistent? Are they consistent with their personalities? Do they have a community that rallies behind that? How is their branding? Even the basic branding gets the job done. It's just everybody has those elements. They just paint it differently, so to speak.
Cool. Wow. Nice. Very enlightening.
Yeah, very enlightening.
I should have my high school notebook right now.
Yeah.
Write some shit down.
Just write all these notes. But I wanted to ask a quick question.
Yeah.
So for those who are listening and want to get into podcasting, what would you say to people who just want to get into it? What are the best first steps to get into podcasting?
Besides
space?
what you just
Yeah.
said. Because when we started, we had a vision.
Yeah.
But I think it took us a while to really get to it was 4 episodes in.
Yeah.
And we finally got this is what we want to do. It's about creative, but we pushed heavy on people like us, not professionals, not more between the amateur and intermediate level, where people can grow. And that's where we found our kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It took us a while to get there. Besides having the North Star, how else do you think someone can start into it, equipment wise? Or
really, you just have to start with what you got. That's what's gonna that's how, even though it took you guys a while, at least you guys are still doing it and you guys are finding your footing.
Yeah.
When you overthink things, even when you overplan things, I may be called the podcast planner, but I am really strong about don't try to plan for everything. It's kind of like going on a vacation, going on a trip.
Yeah.
If you just get in your car and just say, screw it, I'm going to go on vacation, then you have a different experience and you're probably going to miss out on certain things, but then you embrace other things. Same thing with podcasting. You can get started. I always suggest getting started, get comfortable with the gear, and even the gear, it comes down to start with what you got. We all want that fancy studio. We all want it to make it look cool, but start with what you got. And if you can kind of get those basics that I mentioned before, what is your North Star? A lot of the times, what you envision, whether that's a story or just having a basic interview show, it reflects on who you are or who you were. And you just want to help that person who you used to be to get to where you're at, or open their eyes to this is the other world that I want to introduce you to and bring you more of, the insider of, XYZ. So yeah, just get started and have fun. You can't forget to have fun.
Yeah.
I like what you said about how, I don't know if you're maybe I took this the wrong way, but you said doing the podcast is taking from yourself from where you were to where you want to be. I gotta say, I found a bunch of self growth from myself doing this podcast, much more determination for the goals I want in life.
Yeah.
I feel that's super cool. Just to have that in general is totally worth just doing this overall.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I can totally vouch for that too. And even when we started, we had no clue what we were doing.
Dude.
I bought the most cheap mics. I bought the Snowball and
okay.
yeah, and we had one of your friend came through and he helped us get the gear and get everything set up. So we were very fortunate at that, but we did start with Snowball mics, USB mics, and they don't sound the greatest, but at least we were willing enough to push out the content.
Dude,
and we did it
in your kitchen,
I know. yeah, we were doing it through our kitchen. But thank you for my my boss to let us use our this isn't our space, but thank you to her for letting us utilize this space. And yeah. So at least you work with what you got for sure, and I totally. And
you guys have been doing great. I was listening to some of your earlier episodes, and then the most recent episodes. Not the recent one, but I think it was 2 weeks ago, or second to the last episode.
Okay.
But you guys are doing great. Like, and that's what matters. You definitely, it's not uncommon that people, like, you ask any podcaster from successful to just getting started, ask them, how do you feel about your first episode? They'll be like, oh man, I hate it.
Yeah,
I
that's
can't
what we say.
listen to it. And I've been fortunate to talk to some of the most successful podcasters out there. We have them on our platform. I'm constantly going to conferences and trying to talk to them and mingle with them. And they all start where we start. It's just, you got to get going.
Yeah.
And over time, the trialing and error, the experimenting, the having fun, and the ideas start to naturally develop. You just got to keep going.
I did want to touch on just really quick the equipment that most podcasters start out with. Like we said, we had like shit equipment when we started out, and I know like the pros have like these like $1,000 mics.
Right.
Is there like a peak at which your equipment can be the greatest? Because I feel like what we have now is relatively clear for most people. Like, when should you upgrade? What should you start? And when is it just like all brand name at that point? I'm not a huge audio person, but yeah, maybe you can help me out.
So a lot of what it comes down to, and then this is when it comes to audio editing, one of the main rules is don't edit with your eyes, edit with what you hear with your ears, right? Same thing. If you feel like, your audio's pristine, and a lot of the podcasters out there, you listen to what they got, it sounds good. If it sounds good on any device too, that's the key thing. If it sounds good on a computer, if it sounds good on your phone, and it sounds good in your car, then you're good. You don't have to upgrade. Like, why reinvent your whole wheel, spend more money, or reconfigure your office because you invested in $1,000, equipment? So go with what sounds good. A lot of podcasters, it varies. There's podcasters, Tim Ferriss. Do you guys know who he is? So he's pretty big. He's up there with kind of Gary Vee in the business space. So if you go to like iTunes, you're probably going to see his logo there.
Okay.
But Tim Ferriss, to this day, uses a USB microphone. It's the ATR 2100. Typically goes for like $80 on a bad day, $60 on like a good Amazon day.
Okay.
So this guy is constantly traveling, and he does it in his kitchen. He does it in his, living room. He does it wherever he can, and for $60, he gets the job. It gets the job done. And that dude is ranking millions of listeners, and he has thousands of dollars ranking in just because of his show.
Dude,
right?
What a G.
What are we doing? Wait, okay. So since we're talking about this, can I pose a question about how do you even get your podcast out there? Because he's doing, you can say like, you can do it right from your kitchen. But then how do you even get that listenership, and how do you even like market your podcast? Because like that's where I'm kind of still trying to figure things out of how to grab certain people from, which platform kind of thing. So how do I even like do that? And like, how do I get those million listeners or like 1,000 listeners or something like that, if you know?
So like even Tim Ferriss, like I said he has thousands. And before he launched the podcast, he had like a popular blog. He had launched a couple successful books. He's known as the 4-Hour Workweek guy.
Okay.
So he had a platform of an audience to begin with. But how he built that is no different than how you can build an audience on podcasting. And it is leveraging other people's audiences. He's really great at hacking into other people's audience. And with podcasting, the way you do that, the most first and effective way that you can strongly see quicker results is getting on other people's podcasts that are relevant to yours, that kind of share a similar audience or a similar vision.
Yeah.
If you can find a podcast like that, just say, pitch to them, or maybe you have that friend. Just say, hey, do you mind? Like, I think we should collaborate on this episode. Let's talk about this. Are you up for it? And you start to hijack each other's audiences. And then next thing you know, you went from like, just an example, 100 to 200, then 200, and you keep replicating that over time. Mm-hmm. And that's the fastest way that you can grow an audience. And don't stop at podcasts. Like, you guys are doing the video aspect. Get on other people's YouTube channels. Do it for like 5 minutes. Do quick little collabs. Instagram, the number one tip there, if you do like pitch somebody that has a relevant audience and has a pretty decent following, and say, hey, do you mind, like, let's just hop on a quick live chat. When you do a live chat, it pings their audience that, hey, Curtis is on this show, and or on my channel, we're talking about this. So it pings their entire audience, and then your audience gets pinged. So again, it's kind of like hijacking both audience without you even, especially Instagram, without you even trying too hard. You just never know who's going to show up. You never know who's listening. You never know who's watching. Always just get into other people's mediums. Blogs too, if you're willing to write a quick little blurb about something. Again, kind of know your audience, kind of know their audience. If you have a piece of little content to write it up and just say, hey, I have something that I think would be relevant to your audience. Do you mind me posting this on your website? So just collab. Think about collaborating. Yeah.
Okay. That is straight genius.
Yeah.
I never thought of that.
Yeah. We kind of did we give away the key?
It's a strong key.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
That's how a lot of people grow.
Yeah.
It's not, I was listening to Conan O'Brien.
Yeah.
This
dude,
dude,
I forgot that
he just came out with a podcast last year.
Yeah.
But then at the beginning of this year, next thing you know, he's on Dax Shepard's show. He's on so-and-so's show. So they start cross-promoting because they know that's what works. And they know that's what helps. So regardless of who the name is, Conan O'Brien, the majority of the entertainment, night world, I've known him for almost, my adult life.
Yeah.
Everybody knows who he is, but even him and his team put in the effort to get on other people's shows because they know that stuff works.
Wow.
That is genius.
Yeah, very smart.
Very smart.
And what you said about the video too, and that's why I'm glad we're doing video. Like I said, we're trying to get into YouTube, and I mean, we talked about Gary Vee earlier.
Yeah.
Triple threat.
Yeah.
Podcasting.
Yes.
As far as video, I mean, audio is the easiest to consume, right? I mean, you can do it, like you said, walking your dog or whatever. And when it comes to blogs, like you say, this is where I'm kind of hesitant. I've said this before, and I don't actually read that much.
Yeah.
Are blogs, still good for podcasting? Or, do people still go to the podcast website to read the blogs? Yeah. Or is it worth doing? Because I feel like I'd have to script the whole entire podcast and, kind of find a section for it, and it's a lot of time. I guess more big people have employees that do that for them.
Right.
Don't
But I guess
copywriters. Yeah.
starting out,
We don't have that.
No, that has been a personal, not pain point for me, but just I like talking. That's why I want to get into audio.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into writing because writing has never been my number one go-to of expression, other than journaling, simple journaling, nothing elaborate. I'm into notebooks and all that stuff, but I'm not into it to write stories or conversations out. So that was a personal struggle for me too. Going into Simplecast and going into working with clients, I have seen the power of written content. So if you can find a way to repurpose, which is what I would suggest, if it's not in your, because there's podcasters that love to script. Mm-hmm. So some of the more business podcasts that are in storytelling, so NPR, they script a lot of their stuff, and they know how to talk it, they know how to present that script in a way that sounds natural to them.
Got it.
But what I would recommend for normal podcast creators is do your show, do your thing, and if you can, get a service like Descript. Descript is a transcript service. You just upload the audio, and within a minute or two, it populates the transcript. Oh. So you're able to just edit within there. It's kind of like a Google Doc with audio.
Yeah.
You're able to go in there and just, the intro, let's cut that because I can, properly write an intro for the blog. And then you just start stripping it down to some bite-sized content, something more, I would say 300 or 600 words within that range. And then you have a little blog post to go along and say, hey, you want more of this information or this conversation? Click down in the episode, hit the play button below, or subscribe to the podcast. So you don't have to, try not to reinvent the wheel. Don't make more work for yourself. Yeah. It is a little bit more work when it comes to the whole transcript and all that, but don't go, if scripting's not your thing, don't do scripting. If writing's not your thing, don't do writing either. I know that Gary Vee's heavily pushing the repurposing effect. Mm-hmm. It works for those that it's the perfect timing for them, but do what you can. Over time, if you do things right, you start gaining an audience. When you gain an audience, then you gain money. When you gain money, then you can outsource stuff. And I don't want to write, go hire somebody. Like, so, just again, it comes down to like, yes, what you guys have expressed so far is that you guys are aware of this information out there. Mm-hmm. You guys know, it's one thing to not know and just kind of trial and error, but listening to people like Gary Vee are helpful because it gives you like a North Star to reach for, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So just start with what you got. If you can repurpose by doing transcript and stripping it down take away the fluff, the ums and the then you got it. Like, it doesn't take too much. And Descript, I think they give you like 500 free hours. I could be wrong, but I think it's like either 500 minutes or 5 hours. I don't know. They have promotions, but
okay, cool.
Descript.
I'll check them out.
She's very convincing.
I know.
She makes me want to get on the Simplecast. Descript. Yeah. So I don't know.
We'll look into
it's gonna make me think about it.
I know. We gotta look into
behind
it.
the scenes, guys.
I
was gonna get. Oh, so we're talking about repurposing. Mm-hmm. So I kind of wanted to get your take on like I've see. I'm trying to tell Son too. And we're like the reason why we're trying to get into YouTube games because I'm seeing a lot of podcasts being visual, and it's like it's just I think in the last couple years I've been seeing a lot of more channels and a lot of big YouTubers visually, and then at the same time having their own audio content. So like, is it like should you be filming your podcast or should you be putting it onto YouTube just to have that extra like how Gary Vee says it, like that triple threat, to have it in different places, so people can find you better? Is it?
I'm a strong believer in like go where your audience is at, and that's what Gary Vee says too, right? Pay attention to your market. If go where the market's at. Why try to stream up this way when they're going the other way?
Got it.
So meet where they're at, and if you have the means to have video with your podcast, do it, because people, I kind of told you guys, like when I first got here, I'm into the behind the scenes, and I'm into like, who am I listening to? How do they look like? Or it just gives you a different way for people to consume. I'm very heavy on the audio listening experience, but when I do have the time, I'll go check out video. Now flip that on other audiences. There's people who are just video. Maybe that's their way to discover you, is that they're searching through YouTube, and next thing you know, they find your show. Yeah. They're like, VHS podcast, like, okay, let me tune in. Wow, I want to sit here, but I found out that they have a podcast. Let me go download the episode now while I'm on my way to work, and then I'll just rewatch the video when I get back to work. Like, you give different audiences access to you, and that's what you want to do. So try to be in as many places as you can effectively too. So if you're into Instagram, definitely, cater to an audience there. You can give pictures, behind the scene pictures, quick, like, hey, we're going to be talking about XYZ. Do you have any questions? Or what do you want to know? Or have you ever experienced this? Let us know, and then we'll give you a shout out on the podcast. So there's different ways to engage your audience. So definitely do what you can. If you can add video, yes, I would say yes.
Okay.
Cool. And we're doing something right.
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah, because we've been actually trying to rebrand some of this podcast a little bit, with some new kind of, I want to get into like some graphics. So with Instagram, I do all the graphics and kind of like promotion, album cover, podcast cover art. Cover art. Thank you. Because in the past, I actually took on the VHS kind of logo, and I designed every album or cover art to look like an old VHS tape.
Cool.
But I found that it was a little inconsistent with like the colors. It was like a different VHS tape every time. So now I'm trying to go for like a consistent, very simple thing. Would you say the graphics are that important to care about? Because I'm always more of a visual person. I love like graphic design. Mm-hmm. Am I putting too much work into it, or I don't know? What do you think?
I think, again, you brought up the word consistent. Like, if it's consistent and you see that people, we need visuals to support and attract an audience. Again, kind of like the conversation is one thing, but visuals kind of help the show grow too. Again, if you can just create those visuals so that people are scrolling through Instagram, they're like, oh, that's right. There's a new episode out. I should go listen to it now. So do what you can. What I would suggest is try to find like that template or that framework that you can always work off of that makes your work faster. So I'm really heavy on templates. And, Adobe, I don't know if you use Adobe.
Yeah.
So you use Adobe, they have templates that you can easily create and just add that slight difference, to it so that it pops a little bit more. And the colors, if you find that being too much work, then don't do it. But people love like different editions of stuff. People love themes to kind of like, oh, they're in the theme of, black and white. So that's why, the next couple episodes is black and white. So just kind of switch it up to kind of like re-engage audiences. Anything to always, I'm a big proponent of kind of making people do the double take. Like, oh, what was that? When they scroll back up, scroll back to your,
nice.
Either on their phone or they're going through YouTube, they have that thumbnail that pops out to them. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, and I can say about Simplecast again, like what caught my eyes, just your guys' designs. I'm like Son, like I'm very visual, so like seeing your guys' website and everything, and just your simple, I love simple like minimalist logos, and you guys have that, and it's just
The
like
website's beautiful.
Yeah, and it does translate into Simplecast because it's simple.
Right.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
simple design. You need that.
Yeah, it's everything. We want to be able to do what we do and look good while we do it.
Yeah.
I'm such a geek when it comes to visuals too, so much that like there's a certain water bottle that I love, and it's because it's a clear glass and it just has like a bamboo top, and it just visually looks awesome, and I like feel cool to drink out of it.
That aesthetic.
Yeah. So it's the same thing when it comes to creative. Like when it comes like being creative can be like a heavy thing sometimes because we can be very critical of the work, and then you always ask yourself like, is this good enough? Is anybody like that? And then you start to say, oh, it's BS. Like maybe I shouldn't put this out there. The last thing you should think about is the tools that you're using. The tools should just make you feel enthusiastic to go and create. They should also push you to kind of, well, I have this at my hands. Why am I not doing something with it? So visuals from anything, and design and branding, it just has that extra layer of like, be cool, be awesome, like go create.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Right.
Nice.
I'm loving this.
Yeah, same. All right. So I actually went on your website, and on your kind of about me, you mentioned something about like decreasing pod fading, and I kind of caught my eye because I've never heard that term before.
Yeah.
And I assume it just means when a podcast dies out or
Yeah.
like stops getting listeners. How do you kind of prevent that? Or maybe you can enlighten me on what pod fading is more.
It's
So-
a funny name. Like it makes me think of Darth Vader, like pod fade.
I know, yeah, like pod racing or something.
Right.
Yeah.
My boss kind of recoined it, and she said pod, like a pause. And I was like, yeah, that's what it is. It's the point where podcasters, like they get really enthusiastic. They start publishing consistently, but then something happens in their life or something happens creatively where they feel like they've lost, like, what do I do next? Maybe it's okay if I miss one episode this week. And next thing you know, that 1 week, they publish 3 weeks later. And then next thing you know, they don't publish any episodes and they're just gone without any notice, without any information. They stopped. So that's what pod fade is like over time, they just stop doing the episode and then it just goes hiatus. What I would like, my reason for reducing that is there are a lot of strong messages out there. I think that's why podcasting is popular, is that they expose inspiration, they expose ideas, they expose education, content, stories that people need to hear, people that it inspires change, it inspires opportunities. And I've worked with some clients and customers that they're strong, but then they lose that vision and then they go into pod fading and they just don't know how to get back into it. So how to prevent pod fading is going back to the basics, which is what is my North Star? What is the purpose and what is my goal? How can I just keep serving that? And then if you find your place, you're at a place that the content's just stale or you feel like you're just doing it and you're bored, then kind of ask yourself, like, what excites you again? Well, maybe you need to change the format of the show. Maybe you need to change your outlook on the perspective of the audience. It's okay. A lot of popular podcasts do that too. Going back to that podcast Serial, they started off with one season on one topic, and then they shifted focus into a more government Navy story, or I forgot what rank he was, or branch, I should say. But they can, every season, they have changed their audience, and it's okay. There's this other podcast called Monster. And in their first season was the Atlanta Monster. So that was one type of serial killer. And then the other one was the Zodiac Killer. So they changed slight different audience, but with the same theme underlining that. So how to prevent pod fading, it's going back to the basics. What are your goals? Who is the audience that you're going for? And plan, like always plan. I would say, like, if you can jot down the next 5 episodes, then you're good. You know, even 3 episodes, then keep going, like baby steps, keep pushing that, you know, ruler a little further. So go back to the basics. If you feel like you're getting bored or you need to switch it up. Like, it's okay.
Yeah.
That's the power of podcasting. There's no boss behind you to do it. Just do it.
Yeah. And that's always something that a lot of artists and those who are listening, if you're a creator, like sometimes you need to take a step back with any work that you have.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's always good to kind of like, you know, like you said, what's my purpose? You know, why am I doing this? And, you know, maybe you just need to shift gears and like try something new. And it's always good to try something new. And that's why we, when we did this new season, we wanted to rebrand and we wanted to like add new elements, get more guests on the podcast. So that's why we're trying something new and making sure that everything is fresh each season.
Cool.
So that's our goal as well.
Yeah.
But you have been giving us like amazing, like, you know, tips and tricks and just like everything knowledgeable in the podcast space that we're pretty amateur to. But you're a podcast planner, so you have clients, right? Mm-hmm. So why should somebody, like just anybody, like a podcaster, anybody has a podcast, why do they need someone like you?
That's
just putting you on the hot seat
right.
just a little bit. Sorry.
Well, it comes down to, again, if you have a goal in mind that you want to start your podcast on the right foot, and you want to capitalize on making sure that you have those basics so that you're set up for success, and you're more likely to gain an audience a little faster than the person who doesn't plan and just launches the podcast, which is nothing. There's nothing wrong with that. Like I said earlier, you just got to start. But if you have, you know, the time, the dedication, and you know, it costs money to hire me, you know, people like me, consultants. If you have that and you're passionate about your podcast, I'm going to give you that platform of, this is what we're going to do together so that your show is exposed faster to an audience. You gain that audience a little faster, and you're not leaving any, what is it that saying? Like, you're not leaving anything unturned. Like, you're making sure that all systems are go so that you have that opportunity. And along with me, that I come with resources too. Yeah. So if I see that you're struggling in one way, I'll see if I can connect you to somebody that can help you out and push that a little further. So when it comes to not just me, but all the other consultants and teachers in the podcasting space, we've been through this through experience. We have the experience, we have the connections, and we know what's working, what's not working. There's a lot of outdated information out there. And then the information that's new, sometimes you have to kind of take a step back and, you know, is this really is it my best interest? Do they have it in the interest of their audience, or is it a quick buck for them? So there's things that, you know, there's stuff out there that I've seen. I'm like, oh, that looks so bad. Like they're hacking something and it's not the right way to do it. There's this message that I got, and I keep getting them. There's like there's little companies out there trying to hack like the iTunes charts or the Apple charts. It's going to be Apple Podcast in the next couple weeks. Yeah. But they claim that, you know, you hire me and I'm going to get you these many reviews and I'm going to get you to the top charts. Apple sees that, you're out completely, permanently. You are not, you're not going to be ever
blacklisted.
Yeah, you're going to be blacklisted. Like, that's a proper term. Yeah. Like, so you don't want to do that. So yeah, I like to help people start off on the right foot and get them to like the quicker way, because I've been there, I've done that, and I don't want you to go through all that. So I'm going to push you in the right form, in the right direction as quick as possible.
That's why anybody listening, you need Addy.
Thank you.
You need an Addy in your life. Thank you so much, Addy, for being on our podcast. It means the world to us, and we are enlightened with your knowledge of podcasting and everything. And I just want to plug your workbook. It's called the Podcast Planner with by Addy Saucedo. There we go. Okay. But this is a workbook that will help you plan your podcast, and it'll have all the tools to just
templates and all that stuff. Yeah.
So you'll be organized.
Yes.
Thanks to Addy. And if you want to follow her, where can people find you?
Just thepodcastplanner.com. You're going to find all the links there and how to contact me. So just thepodcastplanner.com.
Yeah. So thank you guys for listening. And if you want to follow us, we are the VHS Podcast. You can find us on Instagram, and you can find me on Instagram at Curtis Peak with a K, and you can find Son at Capri Sun, CAPRISANH.
Yep.
And